who's joined us today. Maisha, are you here or are you just not here? Well, if you want to participate, you can say something. If not, then we'll see. Ricardo's here.
Oh no.
Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, good. What's going
Not
on?
much.
Okay. Want to go ahead and do this?
There's 4 hamburger meat left.
Yes, no?
So what are we going over today?
We're going over the Transcontinental Railroad and then any questions you have, and that's pretty much it. So you ready?
Yeah, I don't got no questions, but I want to go over the notes today.
Okay. So we're ready to go? All right. So basically, were you here last week, Ricardo?
No, I was busy last week.
Okay. So, like I said, we're just going over the
Oh yeah, I had a dentist appointment.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
I had a dentist appointment.
Okay. So, Like I said, we're just going over the Transcontinental Railroad and any questions you have after the notes. So basically, during the Civil War, Lincoln realized that once the war is over, he's going to have to do a better job bringing all parts of the country together logistically. Excuse me. So one of the things that had been talked about for a long time was to build a transcontinental railroad connecting the East Coast to the West Coast. And so Congress passed a law where that was going to happen. Lincoln was a strong supporter of it. And instead of building one railroad, you were actually going to build two at the same time, because if you start in the east and go out west, that's going to take a long time. But if you start one in California and one in the middle of the country and they start going like this, it'll be done in half the time. So that's kind of smart. He also, the law also gave both of the railroads land on both sides of the track up to 20 miles or so. And that was done basically so the railroad companies would have extra land in addition to the cash from the contract. They could sell the land or rent out the land and make more money that way. So you have two railroad companies building this thing. You got the Union Pacific, which is in Omaha, Nebraska, because that's as far west as the railroads would go back then. You could go all the way to Omaha. And if you wanted to keep going west, you had to unload all your stuff, go on horse and buggy. Now we're going to have that railroad go farther west. In California, you had some smaller railroads kind of going in and around the big cities like San Francisco, and they actually went out to Sacramento. That's as far as that went. So San Francisco to Sacramento, that's like, I think it's like here to Raleigh, something like that. But it's not super long. So they start in Sacramento, California, and go east. That's going to be the harder of the two, because that's where all of your tall mountains are at. And so you're going to have to kind of build around them, go over them, blow up tunnels and go through them. So that one's going to take a longer time. You have two groups of people working on the railroads. You've got in the east, you have the immigrants from Ireland. They're a lot of them are already living in New York, so you can put them on trains, go out to Omaha, and give them $1 a day, which back then was a lot of money. So you give them $1 a day, and you have them build the railroad going out west. And you had about 10,000 of them doing that. And then in the West Coast, you Irish immigrants are coming across the Atlantic Ocean. The West Coast is the Pacific Ocean. Do you know what continent is on the other side of the Pacific Ocean from California if you kept going across?
Asia.
Yep. So you have a lot of Asian immigrants coming to California at that time. A lot of them were coming because the railroad company recruited them. They're like, hey, we need people to build the railroad. And China was a really hot mess back in the day. So you had about 10,000 Chinese immigrants building the railroad east out of California going over the mountains. They were also earning about $1 a day. I was talking, I looked up your Canvas stuff. I saw you did the warm up. So you saw that picture where they meet up in Utah. It's not exactly halfway because, like I said, it's harder to build over the mountains. So it's like, oh, let me get rid of that. So it's less than halfway, but that's where they met up. They had the ceremony like you saw the picture of. They told all the Chinese people to back out of the shot because they didn't want to they didn't want to recognize the fact that a lot of the work was done by Chinese immigrants. They wanted that to take credit for themselves pretty much, which is pretty sad. But now that you have this railroad network, and I'm going to try to show you a picture of this real quick. it's going to be easier to ship things all across the country, and you're going to be able to better connect the East Coast and the West Coast. And it's not so like farmers, they can ship stuff all over the country. You're going to start to get mining companies get in there, and they're going to be able to ship goods all over the country. People are going to be able to go all over the country. And now it's possible to go from New York and the East Coast all the way to San Francisco and the West Coast in 1 week, which before this time, would take almost a year if you were lucky. So now it's a lot easier, it's a lot safer. Eventually, it'll become a lot cheaper, and America's going to, do better as a united country. Here's a picture of the railroad maps of the West. Here, where I'm putting my cursor, that's the Transcontinental Railroad, the first one. See the date 1869 is when it's finished. But now you see also other railroads are going to start going from the east to the west once they realize, what a good moneymaker it is. And a lot of these railroads are still there. So, you can go from the south to LA, you can go from Chicago, either to LA or Chicago to San Francisco. You can go up to Seattle. The whole West is going to grow because of all this. All right. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
All right. Do you have any questions about any of this stuff?
No.
All right. Do you have any questions about anything at all? Notes or not notes? Assignments, grades, any of that stuff?
Well, is this the last week y'all gonna give out work?
Yeah, last week was the last week I gave out assignments. I'm not giving out any new assignments for the rest of the course. Let me check something out real quick since you're here and I'm here.
Are we still gonna have class next week?
I'll have a class next week, but it's just gonna be to go over any questions you have about grades or assignments or anything like that, because I'm done with new assignments. So I won't be going over any more material after today.
Okay, so
And I'm looking at the grade book. You've got no holes in the grade book. You've turned in everything I've assigned. So, you're pretty much set for the year. For my class anyway.
I was talking about the new thing they send in the mail.
Oh yeah, they sent us this. I had a question about the grading stuff.
Yeah.
They sent me and my brother something from the school. It was like they're giving us two options to how to be
Either-
graded on.
Right. We had a staff meeting last week, and pretty much, you don't have any year-long classes, do you?
No.
Okay, good. That makes it easy. So pretty much what they're going to do is the worst grade you can get is whatever you got in the third quarter. All right. And if you did work in the fourth quarter, that can bring up your grade, but it can't hurt your grade. What we're going to do is at the end of this month, all the teachers are going to turn in grades. And let's say you had an A in the first quarter and you had I'm trying to think, and you had a C in the third quarter, or I'm sorry, I'm tired. Let me back up. You had an A in quarter three. You had a C in quarter four. That would average to a B, right? But since the C would hurt your grade, they wouldn't count the C. Now, so they would just keep the A. Now, let's say your grade point average was really high, like you had like a 3 or a 4 GPA. And let's say your math class, you got a D for quarter three. and that would hurt your GPA, right? Because you have a 3 or a 4 GPA. What you could do is the teacher is going to enter in the D, but what you can do is you can tell. I forget who they say they're going to tell, but I think you would tell like the school like at the end of the month, and when I find out, I'll let you know. But you would tell the school, hey, I don't want the D to count in my grade, because I get 3s and 4s and I got a D in my math class from quarter 3. That's going to mess up my GPA. You tell them I want to be graded on pass fail. You tell them that. And if you tell them that, instead of a D going in your GPA, they would count it as what's called a PC-19, which means I passed, but because of COVID-19, I couldn't bring up my grade for quarter 4 because I wasn't in a classroom to, take advantage of all the opportunities a classroom can provide. So what they would do for your D in math, hypothetically, is they would give you credit for passing the math class, but your GPA wouldn't be affected. It would just stay the same. You would just get your credit for your math class and you would move on to the next class. That's pretty much what it is. If, let's say, you had an F in math and you didn't bring it up in quarter 4 because you weren't in school, what they would do is they wouldn't count it as an F. They would count it as a withdrawal because of COVID-19. It wouldn't hurt your GPA. You wouldn't get credit, but it wouldn't hurt your GPA. And if you did stuff maybe over the summer, or maybe if you took the class over again, that would be fine, but you'd be punished grade-wise. So that's kind of how that all shakes out.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all I had to ask.
Okay. So were we good for today?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you've got any questions, I'll still have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock, and you can email me anytime, and I'll get back with you pretty quick on that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Ricardo, you have a good one.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.